Morgan. An ordinary witch who just wanted a peaceful life, that she could afford the rent. Unexpectedly became the host of the chaotic magic. When her world was disrupted by an uninvited demon Lucifer, she had to accept this reluctant ally to fight against her mad father. Merlin. This supernatural farce is full of surprises and laughs, showing that even the most powerful magic is unpredictable chaos. Part 1. I was just trying to have a late-night snack. I stopped in my tracks clutching a jar of pickles, staring at my bed with a long frustrated sigh. The devil was on my bed, the devil. Not a handsome stranger. Not some old flame or new one with a bad reputation. The actual Dark Lord of Hell himself. Robes made of dark flames flickered around his tall form, as rested comfortably on my duvet. Idly flipping through the book I had been reading before I had left to get my snack. He didn't even bother to look up when I walked in. I looked down at the jar in my hands, sighing again. Sorry pickles, it wasn't meant to be. I'm sure you would have been tasty. Without any further hesitation I chucked the jar of pickles at his head. Running in the opposite direction, crash. I winced at the sound, trying to figure out how difficult pickle smell would be to wash out of my sheets. Or if it would be better to just replace them. Get back here at the devil's angry shout. I shuddered, picking up the pace on second thought. Let's just leave everything behind and rent a new apartment. Not looking behind me, I used my hands to form intricate symbols while chanting under my breath. A dark portal opened up in my kitchen, the sound of an ancient creature's hungry roar echoing out through the opening. Definitely dangerous, but less so than what was waiting for me in my bedroom. Without further thought I leapt towards the portal. Forget about escaping, a grim voice whispered behind my ear, and the portal closed in front of me. Now we need to tell OOF. I threw an elbow back, striking the devil in the stomach, cutting him off mid-sentence. Sorry buddy, I think you've got the wrong house. Waving a hand behind me I raced towards the door. Stop. At his commanding voice the front door went up in smoke, turning to ashes in an instant. Black and green flames filled the doorway, the sight causing me to frown. Hellfire Danjit. There goes my security deposit, freaking hellspawn. With a defeated sigh, I turned around and looked at the Prince of Darkness. What do you want? His face was perfect, enough to make me hate him. But there was a sense of wrongness to it. A painful feeling, as if someone had tried to paint the features of an angel and fell into despair along the way. He smiled, the expression showing far too many teeth. I just want to talk, I snorted at that. I guess that's why they call you the father of lies, right? Crossing my arms, I found the comfiest chair in the living room and sat down. No way you came up here just to have a chat with a grade E witch. I'm not worth your time. Even though it was the truth, I felt a twinge of pain as I disparaged my own worth. But that was the world we lived in, angels, demons, fairies, witches. We were all bound by the powers given to us at birth. The ability to shape the world as we saw fit, to impose our unnatural will on the natural. Some were born with great powers, going on to make legends of themselves. Amazing people like Merlin or my namesake. My many times great-great-grandmother Morgana would have been ranked as grade A. Strong enough to take on the big names of heaven and hell and hold their own. But not everyone can be a legend. Some of us are just mere mortals trying to pay rent. Like a certain grade E witch who was being faced down by the devil. I can make a few short-range portals and tell fortunes, that's it. So unless you want me to pull out my tarot cards, please leave. I stared at the devil, my heart racing, hoping against hope he would listen and leave. He shook his head slowly. Fine. You don't want to waste time, I need the amulet. I felt my heart stop. A roaring sound filling my ears. Amulet. Your grandmother Morgan Le Fay's amulet, he frowned. The one that can change fate. Why? A dangerous question. But his request was even more so. His red eyes narrowed. It's none of your business. It was originally mine. Your family has simply been caretakers for it. He held out a hand. Give it to me now. Staring down at his hand, my mind raced. The Amulet of Fate. Created by Lucifer and used to change the course of the universe. The start of the fall, the great war in heaven. Given to my ancestor, to defeat Merlin, and destroy his Protgs legend. A magical artifact strong enough to turn fate aside. To reshape reality, or change it completely. At my hesitation, I felt a sense of bloodthirst emanating from him. A poisonous aura of death. I shrugged. Sure, why not? With a brief incantation I formed a portal. Reaching through it and pulling out an obsidian amulet. The cool stone froze the skin of my fingers. A brief, painful sensation. Before I tossed it into his outstretched hand. The devil raised an eyebrow. That's it. You're just handing it to me. What do you want? A parade? You said it yourself. It was yours to begin with. So I'm just giving it back to its rightful owner. I sighed. Besides, with my magical aptitude I wouldn't be able to use it anyways. His fingers closed around the amulet. As he studied me closely. I guess that makes sense. Yep, perfect sense. I smiled, waving at him. Safe trip back to hell. Have fun warping the very fabric of reality and destiny to suit your whims. Are you kicking me out? Yes. Why are you still here? I kept a smile on my face. Of course not. I just wouldn't want to waste your time. I gestured towards the burning door once more. Goodbye. He still stood there studying me carefully. Meeting his gaze, I kept any sense of guilt, of deceit from my mind. Walling it off beyond where he could see it. I'm telling the truth as far as we are both concerned. Now go. Most witches would be thrilled to have me in their home. I rolled my eyes. Most witches haven't lost a $600 security deposit because you got flame happy. Do you need money that badly? Not as much as I need you to leave. Nope, I'm good. He continued to stare. I would never expect the great Morgana's descendant would be so weak, unmotivated, practical. He chuckled. I like you a lot better than your ancestor. She was always a little too dramatic. She and Merlin both. I nodded, pretending I cared about what he was still jabbering on about. He has to leave eventually, right? After a long, uncomfortable pause, he finally shrugged and walked through the burning doorway. You didn't put out the hellfire. Seeing he had long disappeared, I threw up my hands in disgust. Devils. You just gave him the amulet, huh, Morgan? The amused voice spoke up from within the depths of my mind. I sighed. What is it now, Cal? Did you expect me to fight the devil? Why not? You could have easily won. Of course I could have. I walked into my bedroom, staring miserably at the wreckage caused by the broken pickle jar. But what would be the point? Gods, devils, angels. They are all still bound by fate and reality. They can bend the rules, of course. But they'll never escape them. But you can. You are a calamity on this world. A being outside of fate and order, it would seem so. Smiling wryly, I reached out a hand and let the power of chaos flow from my fingers onto the broken glass and spilled juice below. There was no visible change. But as my power touched the physical objects, they shriveled up and disappeared, leaving pristine sheets and an open book. Dangit. He lost my place. I picked it up with a sigh, trying to remember what page I had left it on. It doesn't matter how many times I see it. Your power is always so unnerving. Why so shocked? It's not like he didn't use it when you were with him. Yeah, but even your father, I interrupted. That monster is not my father. Even he was never so. Casual about the power of chaos after all. He destroyed his soul just to gain it. Living in eternal agony, he's not like you, who was born with the power to destroy everything from the start. I shrugged silently, finding my place in the book and slipping a bookmark into it. My finger brushed against the bedside alarm clock, and I froze as memories poured into me. Worthless brat. A woman's voice screamed along with the sound of a blow being struck. Grade E. Our glorious family has never produced a witch lower than grade B in centuries. You leached your mother's life force, killing off our family's strongest witch. And what do we get in return? A worthless piece of trash, Aunt Margaret slap. Shut up and get out of my sight. You must take after your worthless bastard of a father, whoever he is. I pulled my hand away from the clock as if burned, and within the next breath my power had reached out, obliterating it from existence, shuddering. I sank down to the floor, resting my head on my arms. Tactile memories. I thought I had gotten rid of everything that had absorbed them. You only bought that clock a few months ago. It must have absorbed the memories from your dreams. The voice in my head sighed, what a worthless family. To cast you away as useless, but I am useless. At least by how they measure my worth. I chuckled weakly, going by pure witch grading. I am the lowest you can get still. Since when did a magical weapon like you care so much for mortal dealings anyways? I thought you were just following me because you were bored. That and your faith. His soul had become too corrupted to wield me anymore. I had to find a new host. And you were the best choice. Is that a compliment, or an insult, both? What do you think he's going to do with the amulet? Lucifer, I shrugged. Not sure how much he can do with it after all. Morgana's amulet has been by my side for almost a decade now. Doesn't that mean it's probably lost most of its power by this point? The corrosion of your chaos nature would have long since consumed any abilities it had. Yeah, he's going to be pissed. Serves him right for losing me my security deposit. Won't he come back? It's not like he'll try it out right away. We should have time to find a new place to hide. I got back to my feet, stretching slowly. I wonder if I have time for a nap, freezing in place. I felt a sense of murderous intent aimed towards my back. Instinctively I turned, striking out with a fist wrapped in my power. Bam! I struck the intruder right in the middle of his face, sending him flying backwards through the wall until he skidded to a stop near the ruins of my broken door. He laid there completely unconscious. Too late. I recognized the face of the being I had just hit. Did you just knock out the devil with one punch? Oops. Guess he checked the amulet sooner than I thought. What do we do now? What do you think? I grabbed a pre-packed bag from my closet. We run. As I dashed towards my front door, I realized that it was still burning with hellfire. Do I obliterate the flames or create a portal to escape? The escape portal's location is random. Who knows where I'll end up? But I can't risk being caught using chaos magic. With a groan I began gesturing through the symbols to bring up a portal, when a hand came down on my shoulder. What did you do to the amulet? Crap. Lucifer had woken up. I handed the devil his tea, sitting across from him while clutching my own mug. He sipped it, making a disdainful expression, and setting it down firmly on the coffee table away from him. This is awful. I didn't spit in it. He paused at that. I didn't ask if you had, it's just too sweet. Studying me with a narrowed gaze he asked. But now I worry, did you spit in it? I was mid-sip and choked. Of course not. You think I have a death wish, liar. You totally spit it in his tea. Shut up, Cal. I smiled innocently at the devil, who did not touch his tea again. So what's the problem? I assume you didn't come here for the tea. And I already gave you Granny Morgana's amulet. Lucifer stared at me. The amulet is broken. Looks fine to me. I met his gaze, refusing to flinch. It's drained of magical power. Living next to a being of chaos will do that. Cal's silent laughter made it hard to focus on the conversation. But I pushed through. Well, it was old. Had to happen sometime. Bam. His fist slammed against the table. I carved that amulet myself in the flames of time and destiny. It should have lasted for an eternity. Leaning forward, his red eyes glowed as his power formed a steady pressure in the room. It was an overwhelming sensation. Befitting the king of hell, it was inescapable. An inevitable dread stronger than death and corruption. Making all who faced it fall before him, that is, all mortal beings. I shrugged off the mildly uncomfortable sensation. His power dispersing around me until it could no longer be felt. So you must have made a mistake when you forged it. What do you want me to do about it? Wow. You sure have a convincing innocent act. I know it's your fault the amulet is broken, and I still almost believed you. I ignored the silent commentary, carefully watching his reaction. Lucifer stared at me suspiciously for a few moments, and then tossed a clear crystal onto the table in between us. Hold it. I raised an eyebrow. A testing crystal. Really, you think I'm lying about my power grade? He didn't look away. Just humor me and take the test. You give me a strange feeling. A feeling. A sense of danger. He smiled, the expression more threatening than when he had been angry. I trust my instincts. Suit yourself. With a quiet sigh, I reached out and grabbed the crystal. The initial clear color turned to a light gray, flickering between gray and clear multiple times before settling into the dull-colored glow. You weren't lying. You barely pass as a grade E. Looking shocked, Lucifer stared at the crystal, muttering to himself. I focused on my rapidly cooling tea, sipping it quietly. The one time in my life I'm actually glad to see that lousy gray color. The first time I took this test, it broke my heart. This silly test is all it took to turn your family against you. Pathetic mortals. They had the power to destroy the universe within their grasp. I was surprised at the anger in Cal's voice. As a magical weapon, he typically didn't get too riled up about human affairs. It's fine. No point in holding a grudge at this point. Most of them are dead anyways. Actually, maybe you can help me even without the amulet. Lucifer's thoughtful words interrupted my argument with Cal. I felt a slight chill go down my spine as he studied me up and down. If I can't use the amulet, then I just have to investigate this the hard way. He muttered quietly as he looked me over. Which? Even a grade E like yourself should have a pass to enter the yearly gathering. Correct, the witches' gathering. I shrugged. Yes, I technically still have a pass. But I haven't gone in years. Why do you care? I care because I need a way in. Your pass allows for one servant to attend you, and I can use that to get past the magical gates. I coughed, choking on my tea. You're the devil. Just ask. I doubt they would say no. I need to get in without alerting the High Council of Witches. He shook his head slowly. They'd never suspect I would come in with a weakling like you. Weakling? Let's chop off one of his arms. Morgan, no. Come on, it will be fun. He'll barely miss it. I said no. Cal, spoil sport. Why do you need to get into the gathering? I finally asked him. Lucifer's eyes narrowed. You don't need to know that. Then I'll have to decline. I wasn't giving you a choice. A sense of impending doom filled the air, as if a blade were pressed against my throat. Now can we kill him? Please shut up. You stupid sword. I kept my eyes firmly on the devil's red gaze. Go ahead and kill me if you want. I'm sure plenty of witches would love to assist you. For a moment I thought he would attack. But after a brief hesitation, I felt the murderous atmosphere diminish. You're definitely brave, I'll give you that. He leaned back into his chair. Looking deep in thought, not really, I meant it. It wasn't really bravery that kept me calm despite his threats. After all, if he had tried to kill me, I simply would have cut off his head. It's never too late for a good decapitation. Let's go for it. There's a new dangerous magic that's been destroying demons. Lucifer's words caught me by surprise. It's not strange for a few to lose their lives here and there. But I've lost hundreds in the past 3 weeks. He brushed his hair back from his face. Looking tired. I thought it was some new heavenly weapon. But when I investigated further, I found out they were losing just as many angels on their side. That's why you wanted the Amulet of Fate. To stop some magical killing spree. He shook his head. No, I don't think you understand. This isn't something killing demons. It's destroying them. As if they never existed in the first place. Destroyed, no soul, no physical form. Even their line of fate has vanished. He sighed quietly. I thought I could change the fate of our kind. Stop this at its root, but without the amulet. I have to track down the source. If it's not heaven or hell, the next likely culprit is some new strange form of witchcraft. That's why I need to make it to the gathering. I leaned forward. Are you absolutely certain of this information? They were completely destroyed. Not even their fate left behind. I've investigated this personally, I'm sure. I threw back my head and laughed loudly. The sound startling in the otherwise quiet room. Finally, after waiting my whole life. You've finally shown yourself, Morgan. You really think it's him? Who else could wield the power of chaos besides me? I smiled up at the ceiling. My vision blurring with tears of relief. Cal. I'm finally going to kill him. Why are you? Lucifer trailed off, staring at me in confusion as I reined in my expression. I'll help you, I grinned, sticking out my hand. Really? Why? I smiled at him. You don't want my help now, no. But you changed your mind awfully fast. I just was hit with a sudden desire to visit family. I laughed at the joke that no one would get. The gathering starts in 3 days. Witches are free to enter the barrier as early as 5 days in advance. Do you want to leave now? Or wait until closer to the start of the meeting? Lucifer still looked shocked. Sooner would be better. I guess great now that all of that is settled. Let's head off. I paused, but first. We do have one thing to take care of. What is that? I held my hand out. You owe me $600. You're joking, no? You lost my security deposit with your hellfire nonsense. I want that money back. You. His expression was incredulous. You realize that I'm the king of hell. The prince of darkness, lord of lies. My hand didn't waver. $600. Not a penny less. Fine. With a deep sigh he waved a hand. And a stack of cash appeared on the table between us. Under his threatening gaze I counted every last bill. And after confirming that the correct amount was present and that none of it was counterfeit, I pocketed the money, picking up my packed bag once more. I can't believe you counted it, Lucifer muttered. Did you really think I'd cheat you on such a small amount? Get over it. Cheating and lying is a part of your nature. You should be insulted if I didn't count it. Lucifer finally put out the hellfire in my front doorway. And we headed out with a smile. The Witches' Council won't be happy to see you. The feeling will be mutual. Does that mean we can kill them this time? The sword's bloodthirst permeated my body, threatening to catch me away with it. Don't worry, Cal, you won't be bored long. I smiled to myself. I have a feeling we'll have caused plenty of death and destruction before this mess is done. Part 2. As we headed towards the gathering portal at the center of town, I glanced over at the devil walking beside me before letting out a long, exasperated sigh. Please tell me you're going to at least attempt to disguise yourself before we reach the portal. Lucifer looked at me with confusion. What do you mean? Is there something wrong with my appearance? Wrong? I took in his overly handsome features. Bright red pupils and his robes made of dark flames. Yes. You're absolutely hideous and they might not let us into the gathering. Hideous. I feel like someone would have told me before this. He shook his head. Are you sure you're not just jealous? Wow. Someone is full of himself, Cal muttered in my head. Besides, he can't even begin to compare to my awe-inspiring appearance. Aren't you a sword, a very handsomely crafted sword? Distracted, I tried to focus on my conversation with the devil, rather than the silent argument with the magical weapon. You're too recognizable. Disguise yourself to be a little less noticeable. Please. Lucifer chuckled. Fine little witch. Have it your way, muttering briefly under his breath. His features roughened up to a more average appearance, his red eyes turning a light brown. Even his clothes changed from the robes of flame to a more sedate grey pants and shirt. How's this passable? I pointed ahead of us. The portal entrance will be in that abandoned house up ahead. As we walked down the street, however, I felt a brief familiar sense of danger, and stopped in my tracks. What is it? Lucifer started to ask, but then paused himself, staring around as if to pinpoint the direction of the threat. Something's coming. Then stand back, little witch. I'll handle this, holding out a hand. The space around his fingers tore into nothingness, and a sword of flames appeared in his hand. Is that? He grinned. Stole it off an old friend. He won't miss it. As he spoke, a thunderous roar filled the streets, causing the windows of all the nearby buildings to shatter. The road under our feet buckled, the asphalt crumbling into dust. The air itself seemed thick, making it difficult to breathe up there. On the rooftops at my direction, Lucifer stepped up into the air, standing on nothing as firmly as he had on the ground before. In front of him, on top of multiple buildings, stood creatures formed from purple smoke. They were twisted, unnatural, having only the vaguest hint of a bestial shape that constant changed. The suggestion of teeth, claws and horns that disappeared and reappeared seemingly at random. The space around them was warped, the stone buildings disappearing into nothingness where the claws of the creatures gripped it. My heart began to beat rapidly in my chest. Chaos magic, it really is him. Cal's silent whisper carried the shock I felt. His back, but I don't feel him nearby. It's just his minions. As we spoke, the devil had reached the level of the creatures. His flaming sword stretched out in front of him. Are you what's been attacking my minions? He chuckled. Big mistake. Didn't your little monster parents warn you about getting on my bad side? He leapt forward, and my heart stopped as I realized what was about to happen. Don't touch them, or you'll be destroyed. At my panicked shout, he slowed his strike. But before he could pull away, one of the smoke creatures reached out and grabbed the sword's blade in its claws. The sword's flames became an enormous pillar, the bright light almost blinding me. As quickly as it flared up, however, it vanished, the sword disappearing into nothingness. The chaos magic is strong, Morgan Cal groaned. It may not be enough to completely destroy the devil's existence, but it could hurt him badly. You're right. But if I step in, don't worry so much about the consequences. Besides, it's been too long since we've had a good fight. I laughed. Sure, why not? Feeling reckless, I called out to Lucifer, who had backed away a few steps, staring at his empty hand in shock. Stand back. It's my turn now. What are you? He started to shout back at me, but I had already turned away. every iota of my focus on the monsters made of purple smoke above me. Monsters of chaos magic, his magic slap. My palm struck my chest, where underneath my clothes a golden tattoo of an intricate magical circle was drawn. A marking that had been there since I was an infant. Cal's mark. A golden blade handle appeared in my hand, pulling seamlessly from my chest, from its resting place deep in my soul. All right, friend, it's time to have some fun. Keep me from going too far over the edge, okay? Of course, I stepped closer, looking at the buildings above me. Unlike the devil, I didn't have the ability to stand on air or to fly in the sky. My magic was only grade E, limited to random transportation portals and inaccurate fortune-telling. Not that I was going to let that stop me. Break. I raised my free hand, and at my whisper the power of chaos flowed from my fingers towards the buildings around me. Silent, unseen. Nothing changed for a moment before the 4 buildings surrounding me faded into nothingness. The chaos creatures fell to earth, taking no damage from the fall. 10 or so of the smoke creatures stared at me, their eyes glowing a bright purple. Looks like they recognize chaos magic. They don't seem that worried, I muttered, as I stepped closer to the snarling monsters. That's because chaos can only hurt structure, order, fate, not its own. Then I guess it's good that we are not fighting them with my chaos magic. With a smile I rushed forward, swinging my sword in a wide arc. Again the creature reached out with a misshaped claw, trying to catch the blade in its grasp, as it had done with the flaming sword before. Fools, the sword swept through it, and it disappeared with a shriek of pain and light. Such pitiful low-effort magic. Did you really think you can stand against the ultimate weapon of fate and order? It's too late for regrets. I swung the sword around in a full arc, taking out 4 creatures at once, rushing through their disappearing bodies. I struck from behind, taking out 2 more before they could react. One of the remaining 3 creatures roared with rage, purple smoke pouring from its gaping mouth. It leapt towards me, the purple smoke trying to envelop me, destroy me. Useless, I held out my left hand, the unseen power of chaos surrounding me. The purple smoke struck against it, before fading into darkness. I swung the sword once more, taking out my attacker, as well as the beast beside it. There was only one left. Its eyes blazed with a different color, pale white. As it crouched low on the ground, a whimper escaping it, it began backing away, whining as I stepped closer, keeping the distance between us constant. It's natural to fear a more powerful force than you, I whispered, as I watched the creature panic and turn around to flee. Unfortunately, I don't want you going back to him. Everything from him, of him and around him, but be destroyed. I casually tossed Cal into the air, and the golden blade glowed with a brilliant light as it flew purposefully towards the fleeing chaos creature. Thud, the creature was gone, with nothing to mark its previous existence other than a sword now impaled on bare ground where it had once stood. As the world went silent around me, I tried to relax, clenching my fist and forcing my powers back beneath my skin. If I let the chaos magic out too much, it would escape my control and consume everything around me. It resisted my will, trying to push outwards rather than inwards. But I poured all my energy into suppressing it, until slowly it began to retract. The sword lifted up into the air, hovering in front of me. Are you okay? I chuckled. Not sure, I'm a little out of practice at this. As I spoke, my vision faded into darkness, and I collapsed to the ground unconscious. Little witch. Lucifer watched in horror, as the young woman, who had just taken down 10 beasts, without blinking an eye, turned pale and crumpled to the ground. He flew to her side, reaching out to grab her, When the golden sword she had fought with moved in front of him, blocking his path, "Go away, sword. I'm not trying to hurt your master." He swiped a hand, trying to push the weapon out of the way. A bright light flashed, momentarily blinding him. "HMPH, you think you can hurt my master? You're lucky she didn't decapitate you when I asked her to." A man with bright golden eyes and long golden hair stood in front of the unconscious woman, glaring at the devil as if he were a mortal enemy. Lucifer paused. "Wait, you a magical weapon? To have a soul and to be able to take a human form, it would have to at least be a deity-level weapon. Even he didn't have something so outrageous. So how did the little witch get her hands on one? My name is Excalibur. My friends and master call me Cal." He looked the devil up and down. "You can call me Excalibur, Excalibur, Arthur's sword. From the legends I thought you were lost." Cal snorted derisively. "I was a god-level weapon long before that boy came along. And I will be one long after. But that's all people seem to remember." "How did the little witch?" "My mistress's name is Morgan. And she could destroy you on a whim. So be respectful." Lucifer's head hurt. He couldn't remember the last time so many people had disregarded him in so little time. But he supposed if he played along he could get more answers. "How did Morgan end up as your mistress?" "None of your business, little devil." Cal glared at him again. "All that matters is that she is the calamity. The power to end all powers. And you are nothing before her. A grade E, which is the power to end all powers." But still, he had personally seen her take out 10 monsters that had nearly destroyed him in seconds. "What's wrong with her?" he finally asked, adding on as soon as Cal's mouth opened, "And don't tell me that it's none of my business. She and I have a deal to let me into the gathering." The magical weapon sighed. "She's repressing the chaos magic she brought out to fight those creatures." "Is that what those things were made of?" "Chaos magic, yes." "So how do I know that your mistress isn't the one who summoned them here?" "It seems sort of big coincidence that she just happens to use the same kind of magic that those creatures are made of." Cal rolled his eyes. "They have the same magic as how, in the same way that a creek is made out of water compared to an ocean. They are a poor imitation of her true power." The devil stared down at the unconscious young woman. "If she's so powerful compared to them, why'd she pass out? She's not suffering from destroying their magic, but from controlling her own." As he looked at his mistress, Cal's eyes glowed with a fond expression as his hand reached down to brush her dark hair from her face. "She's so insistent on not destroying this world. Well, I guess that's why I follow her. Instead of her faith, instead of my last master. Well, that's all well and good. But are we going to leave her to sleep on the street?" "Good point. Her fortune-telling shop is nearby. We can take her there to rest." Cal reached down and picked her up, tucking her small frame against his chest. "I can carry her." Lucifer started to speak up, but halted at Cal's dirty look. "No, I don't trust you." He looked him up and down. "You're too weak. You'll drop her." Lucifer didn't think anyone had ever accused him of being too weak before. It had certainly been a strange day. "Then lead the way, I guess." They made their way to the small shop, leaving the destroyed buildings and road as the only sign of the battle that had been fought. "I woke up in the back room of my tarot shop. Confused. How did I get here?" Lucifer sat across from the couch I was laying on, idly flipping through a catalogue with a bored expression. "The sword carriage, you call. How did a sword?" I shook my head. "Never mind, let's go to the gathering." I started to stand up, but was blocked from passing Lucifer, who stuck out his legs to block me. "What do you want to talk?" He looked up from the catalogue, his face grim. "What do you know about those chaos monsters?" I sat back down with a sigh. "Not a lot. Don't know how they are made or anything. Just that they are constructed with chaos magic. Chaos magic, the antithesis to life, order, and fate. I grinned. The destruction of all. A witch or magical being can only access it after devouring their soul to forbidden magic and committing themselves to eternal agony. He raised an eyebrow at that. Is that what you did? Nope, I was born with it. I wasn't aware that Morgan Le Fay's line had such rare magic. I frowned. It doesn't, so your father is none of your business. He is if he's the one behind my missing demons. Seeing my stubborn expression, he sighed. So you have the ability to destroy worlds? Not really. Yes, she does, so watch your back. Little Devil Cal's voice spoke up. And by Lucifer's reaction he could hear him too. Lucifer rubbed his forehead. So how are you a grade E witch exactly? The crystals only measure standard magical power and ability. I grinned. Nothing to do with rogue world-ending magics if that's the case. I may need your help more than I anticipated in this problem. No worries if it is who I think it is. I'll take care of it all for you, forcing my way up. I pushed past his legs and walked through the closed shop. Now let's go to the gathering, as he followed me. Lucifer looked around, frowning. If you're so powerful, why do you run such a pitiful store selling fortunes? I laughed at the question. Being a world-destroying calamity doesn't help pay rent. We headed once again for the portal. It was time to see my family again. Part 3. As we stood outside the door to the building housing the gathering portal, I paused, looking back at the once again disguised devil. Just to warn you, the Witches' Council doesn't exactly like me all that much. Lucifer shrugged. So as my servant, don't expect a warm welcome. You'll probably be looked down on. I studied him doubtfully. Can you hold back from frying them with hellfire? He thought it over. Probably. Cal's voice was skeptical. I mean, if you can hold off destroying them with your world-ending chaos magic, I can't see why I can't hold off incinerating their worthless corpses. Even if they should be prostrating themselves before me and sobbing with fear. He'll last 10 minutes before cracking. Don't you have any confidence in me? I shook my head. That's a little overboard, Cal. He is the devil. After all, at least the witch knows my true worth. I'll bet he cracks in 5 what $10 deal. Lucifer threw up his hands. Why is no one listening to me? We are listening. Did you want in on the bet? Yeah, join in. More money for me. Morgan never gives me enough spending cash. What do you mean I don't give you enough money? You're a sword. What are you going to spend it on? Polish cheapskate, earn your own money then. The devil stared at me with a tired expression as I argued with the invisible magic weapon. Let's just go in. We entered the building, only to be immediately confronted by a member of the Witches' Guard. They were an elite force that protected the council and the yearly gathering from all opposing forces. Soldiers who had trained in both weapons and magic. They were the best of the best. Unfortunately, they were all too well aware of that fact. State your name and business. A dark-haired knight watched us suspiciously, his silver armor gleaming in the scattered torches around the room. His weapon, a spear glowing with a faint green light, was pointed in our direction. Morgan. Here with my servant for the gathering. I held up my palm. A small, intricately detailed tattoo on my palm lighting up briefly before fading back into invisibility. The knight's eyes widened. A descendant of Morgan Le Fay apparently. The man's gaze turned disdainful almost immediately. He turned, spitting at the ground. Mother's bane. The cursed child dares to return. Lucifer shuffled uncomfortably beside me. But I didn't flinch at his disgusted question. Whether I dare or not is none of your business. I am a recognized witch here for the gathering. My pass is in order. The question is, do you dare to stop me? The threat hung in the air between us finally. The knight opened his mouth, likely to spew more insults when a more sinister, feminine voice spoke up. Cousin, I can't believe you showed up. A young woman my own age slipped by me, standing next to the knight with vicious grin. I thought you had decided to hide away from these sort of meetings to spare yourself the embarrassment. I looked at her quietly for a moment. She was a beautiful girl, but something always was slightly off about her appearance. Her features were delicate and soft, her sharp, angry blue eyes seeming out of place framed by such a pleasant appearance. At my gaze she flipped her dark curls over her shoulder, laughing softly. What's wrong, cousin? Lost for words after all this time. Your cousin, Lucifer whispered incredulously. Her name is Irena. A much more distant relation than that, I reluctantly answered. Morgana's line has always been very straightforward. There is only ever one descendant, and they always only have one daughter. There will only ever be one true heir to Morgan Le Fay. And it's my master. All these so-called relatives are distant relations through marriage. Doesn't that mean that you have to have a child to continue the line? Lucifer glanced at me with a sympathetic expression. Only if I care to continue it, I volunteer. You can have kids with me. We don't have time for a birds and bees talk, Cal. You're a sword, it would never work, don't worry. I'll handle all those insignificant details. Lucifer snorted. Pretty sure you being an object is a pretty significant detail. Stay out of childbearing negotiations. Nope. No more childbearing negotiations. I shook my head. Childbearing negotiations are indefinitely put on hold. As Lucifer and I shared a whispered argument with the suddenly enthusiastic invisible magical weapon, Irena's expression grew more and more annoyed. Cousin, don't you think you're being very rude? She finally spoke up again, forcing the words through gritted teeth. I smiled gently. Oh, Miss Irena, please refrain from calling me cousin. I shrugged helplessly. After all, the family cut ties with me years ago. Patting her shoulder helplessly, I continued. I can understand, though. It can be difficult to remember major family events with limited mental capacity. The knight beside Irena widened his eyes with shock at my words. You dare? She held up her hand. It's okay, Martin. She can't help but strike out at others in her own weakness. Staring at me with a smile, she slowly continued. Speaking of weakness, I suppose you haven't heard of the new rule passed by the council last session. What is she up to? Rule? Her smile widened. All grade D and below witches must wear their grade marking at all times to prevent confusion during clan negotiations. So just me then. The gathering was limited to witches of the noble clans. It was extremely rare to have a witch from these families test lower than grade C. And the few that did refuse to go to the meetings. I would be the only one to have to bear the humiliation of having my grade marking displayed. It was my family's petty way to discourage me from coming. Irena's expression was innocent. Of course it's not a rule just targeting you. It's purely for the good of the clans here. Let me help you. She reached out towards my forehead. She dares to humiliate my master. Let's chop her arm off. Cal roared silently. In our heads agreed. Lucifer snarled quietly, hellflame gathering around his fingers. I reached out, grabbing his arm, keeping my expression bland. A burning pain appeared on my forehead, and I knew that a shimmering grey insignia had appeared on the skin there. The words in a language that only witches could understand. It declared my status as a grade E. The lowest of the low, the shame of my family. I grinned, ignoring the pain. Anything else? That caught her by surprise. She studied my expression for a few moments, as if looking for the pain and humiliation that should be there but wasn't. No, I'll go on ahead, cousin. Just remember to leave the grade marking in place. She muttered under her breath. Not that you have enough power to remove it even if you wanted to. She turned away from me. Pausing briefly at the sight of Lucifer. You are my cousin's servant. He raised an eyebrow. I'm Miss Morgan's servant. You should consider changing sides while you still can. If you think you can gain any benefits, because she's in the direct line of Morgan Le Fay, then think again. She's lost her inheritance due to her own incompetence. She looked him up and down. You're not really up to my usual standard appearance-wise. But I'd be willing to make an exception and take you in as one of my servants instead. She smiled at him, leaning over to show off her low neckline to its fullest advantage. I wanted to groan with embarrassment for her. Is she literally trying to tempt the original tempter? This is so sad. Hey little devil. Why don't you take up that annoying woman's offer? You can still get into the gathering. And my master and me can actually take care of business without your dead weight. Lucifer rolled his eyes. No thanks. Arena frowned at his words. Choose carefully. Servant, you won't get this good of an offer again. There's no need for any further consideration. He smiled grimly. I'm not switching. Fine. The young woman snapped, turning towards the portal. Enjoy the gathering, cousin. I sighed with relief once she was gone. Why did you let her get away with that? Lucifer asked, staring at me with a confused expression. The insults or the insignia, both. Don't you have the power to obliterate her? Exactly. I like the way you think, devil. Even if you are dead weight, I grinned. This is nothing, these sorts of childish games. It's never been worth my time. You don't think I'm dead weight like the sword says, right? At Lucifer's question, I stared up at the ceiling, keeping my voice monotone. Of course not. You're obviously lying. No, that time was even worse. Lucifer sounded near tears. When in the eons of my existence has anyone ever considered me dead weight? That's what you get for hanging out with your superiors. Don't say that, Cal. At my words, Lucifer, who had been hanging his head down, looked up hopefully. It's not his fault he's weak. You shouldn't tease him, both of you. Shut up. Ignoring our laughter, he stomped ahead of us, walking towards the portal as I followed behind him. The night guard looked at the glowing insignia on my forehead with a satisfied expression. Useless trash, he muttered under his breath. I ignored him, stepping into the portal. But just as I was transporting, I heard a scream of pain, and looked over just in time to catch sight of the knight, who was now leaping around trying to put out the green flames, which had mysteriously sprung up from the seat of his pants. How long was that? I checked my watch. 4 minutes and 28 seconds. So disappointing. Can I use an IOU? You still owe me $20 for the last bet you lost. It's just a run of bad luck. I'm happy to pay you with an eternity of love and affection. Cash only. Harsh. Hey devil boy. You just had to let the hellfire loose. Your weak self-control got me into this mess. Pay the lady, pay your own bad bets. Lucifer grinned. Plus he deserved it. We headed into the main gathering space, with a few days still left before the true meeting started. There were not too many witches who had arrived yet. However, even the small groups stood together, staring at the glowing insignia on my forehead, whispering to each other, Mother's Bane, the cursed one. She dared to show up here. I thought she was dead. I put their voices behind me, looking at the various glowing signs that pointed out the different directions. The Forbidden Library is on the lowest level. If you want to research up on chaos magic, and who might have access to it, that's your best bet. Lucifer glanced at me curiously. What about you? I'm sure my lovely family members won't sit still for long now that they know I'm here. Once I've survived whatever fallout that brings, I'll look for clues on where to go next tonight. Can we at least kill them all this time? and have to handle all the administrative and diplomatic work on my own. No. Better to let them enjoy their temporary titles and authority. Of course, if they get too much in my way. I trailed off with a grin. I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye, and sighed quietly to myself. They moved even faster than I expected. If you're going to not be involved in this, I suggest you move now. Lucifer stared at me with a thoughtful expression. I'll stay with your chaos magic. You're my best chance for getting to the bottom of this whole mess anyways. Suit yourself, I shrugged. Should be interesting either way. 4 guards strode up to us, hands on their weapons. Morgan, any Mother's Bane, the matron has summoned you. That old bat has gone too far, Mother's Bane. They had taken my clan name and given me a cursed one instead. It's okay, Cal, it's just a name. Muttering quietly to keep the magical weapon calm, I followed behind the guards, keeping my hands clenched at my sides. One of them tried to stop Lucifer. Just the witch has been summoned, that's my servant. He's completely harmless. I sent a silent prayer to no one as they scanned him with their power. Fine, one more weakling won't make a difference. Lucifer caught up to me, his face stiff with rage. Weakling. I'll torture their souls in hell for eternity. I patted him on the shoulder. Of course you will. Don't worry, little devil. We'll help you get revenge on whoever bullies you. I don't need your help, I'm strong, damn it. We were brought into the council room. An all too familiar sight. On elevated seats in a semicircle sat the council members, all watching me with disdainful expression barely visible from the shadow of their black hoods. Only my Aunt Margaret, the acting matron, stood with her head uncovered. Her eyes narrowed as we drew closer. You've returned. Her voice was flat, dislike lacing her every syllable. And you haven't lost your touch with wasting time with the obvious. Anything else you want to talk about? Her jaw tightened at my retort, but as her eyes glanced over the grade marking on my forehead, her face relaxed into a triumphant smile. I have family business to discuss with you. I forced a smile. I'm not part of the family. You kicked me out, remember, like it or not. You are Morgana's sole direct heir. You have failed your primary duty of taking leadership in the council due to your disappointing weakness. But now we must consider your secondary duty. Her eyes bore into me, almost seeming to dig into my flesh. I'm glad you decided to come on your own. Otherwise, I would have sent someone to fetch you this year. Get to the point, Margaret. I felt my nails digging into the palm of my hands, and tried unsuccessfully to unclench my fists. You must carry on Morgan Le Fay's line. To accomplish this, we will arrange a man of suitable power for you to be given to, with the hopes that your offspring will be better suited for the position of descendant than you are. Her smile widened. You should be grateful with your quality. You would never have a chance to even lay eyes on powerful men like this. And if I refuse, my voice was cold, hers was colder. You will not be given a choice. Enslavement magic is distasteful, but has its purposes in light of the greater good. And when is this to occur? I felt a power gathering at my fingertips, a sense of destruction filling my soul. After the gathering, I have an important guest arriving, and my full attention must be given to him. At the words, important guest, I noted the discomfort on many of the women's faces, and a gut feeling had me pushing down the destructive force I had come so close to letting loose. It was difficult. The power resisted being placed back, after coming so close to being able to consume everything in the room. Anything else? I pushed the words through gritted teeth. It was difficult to focus on anything but the need to destroy everyone and everything. My muscles were shaking with the effort, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. No. Enjoy the gathering. Her satisfied smirk made my struggle all the more difficult. Do not try to leave. Or I'll have my men drag you back sure. Not that it mattered. Any men they sent after me would be destroyed. As I turned to leave, I heard Margaret call my name one last time. I glanced back, only to see her hold up a small silver ring. This was your mother's, why don't you take it back? Appreciate the weight of your new name. She tossed it in my direction, and without thinking I reached out and grabbed it. As the cold metal touched my skin, I felt the memories my mother had left behind flood into me. Face it, he didn't give you a gift, he poisoned you. This child is stealing your life force, destroying you from the inside. Who knows what sort of monster you're carrying? No. I refuse to believe that he loved me. I know he truly cares. And he'll love our daughter too. Open your eyes. He killed you, you're lying. I shuddered, almost falling to the floor as I felt the walls close in. A pair of warm hands caught me, and the devil's voice whispered in my ear. Should I kill them? I took a deep breath, trying to find a balance, with my emotions thrown out of order. My power, which had been barely constrained, was even closer to breaking free. They still have one last use. Just get me to the resting rooms. He supported me with one arm, and we struggled out of the room under my aunt's triumphant gaze. As we navigated the different twists and turns of the gathering area, I slowly focused on my breathing, forcing my power down, feeling my willpower drain. Cal was uncharacteristically quiet, likely realizing I couldn't afford the distraction. As he pulled me into a resting room, Lucifer set me down on a bed, his eyes concerned. Are you okay? I wanted to answer, but felt it was getting more and more difficult to talk. Even if I could, what could I say? Mother's bane. They forced the name on me, but it didn't make it untrue. Monster. What else could they call someone who struggled not to destroy everything and everyone? I was so tired. Why had I agreed to come back again? Oh yeah, for a chance to kill that bastard. As I opened my mouth to try to explain, I heard a very familiar voice speak out loud rather than in my head. A cold palm covering my eyes. Just rest, Morgan. Feeling relieved, I felt myself slip quickly into unconsciousness. Every story has its ending, but Morgan's story connects with our hearts. If you have been touched by her journey, please stay with us. Subscribe to our channel to maintain this connection, and look forward to the next emotional touch together.